So I'm Mike Mulligan again, and I live at 2 miles from Vermont Yankee. Like I've said, I worked there as an operator for 13 years, and was in the Navy on a fast attack experimental submarine. And I'm a whistleblower. I blew the whistle on Vermont Yankee back in the 1990s, pretty severe. So anyways, today we're going to talk about Pilgrim, and we're going to talk about due diligence of a large utility CEO, and some historical record with SRV issues, and the philosophies that undermine nuclear power, the philosophies that assure safety at nuclear power plants. And basically, if you are work to rule, if that's what the utilities are doing, is strictly working, just operating their plants to rule, with having no higher philosophy, then they're dangerous as hell. So anyways, let's go back to we're going to go on to the most recent LER, the guy that they released as soon as Vermont Yankee shut down. There was no operating threat. So this was the event took place on February 20th, 2013. This is the second. Forced shutdown because of leaks. They had a host of they had two secret leaks beforehand that they didn't admit until a year later or more, and they had a host of other leaks for the rest of the 18-month cycle. Remember I was talking about that? They had 6 or 7 leaks. They had a host of power restrictions at 80% and 94% and stuff like that. These types of events add up to a lot of money and stuff. And I'm shocked that the CEOs are not looking into this from the eyes of how much money they lost. So we go down there, oh, did I tell you the time, the dates? Did they say that? Jesus, I'm getting old. 1/22/13 is when the shutdown occurred. That's the second shutdown. It was 3 months later, 2 months later. The report date was 3/21. Then it took them it took them to the next ice age as far as when it finally got out to us and stuff like that. Again, I complain of why these, especially when there's an industry-wide problem going on, right, with Target Rock 3-stage relief valves. Why does it take all this time to? How come they're continually in a investigative mode? An investigative mode for years on end and stuff. And when does an investigative mode become not a tool for understanding, but a tool for disunderstanding? A tool for information disruption. You understand what I'm saying? When does saying you're going to have an investigation allow these utilities to create a sense of an investigation when they're doing shit behind it, not doing very much behind it? They're fracturing information. They're disrupting information. They're not reporting information immediately and stuff like that. So. An investigation, everybody should be very careful when, I don't care what agency of the government or something, or a corporation says they're under investigation. Well, what is the quality of that investigation? Who runs the investigation? An investigation is beautiful for not, a tool to not disclose information. You think an investigation is a tool to disclose information? No. A lot of these guys use it the exact opposite. They're an excuse to withhold information. We're under an investigation and we can't release any reports and stuff like that. And and what are the standards of releasing information with investigation? Is it an independent investigation? Is it self-interested investigation. We really don't. The media doesn't help us understand the nature of investigations and all the modes of investigations. Everything is a simple under investigations, and everybody thinks it's honest. The entity is honest about investigations when it's not so. There's many modes of investigation. There's more modes of disinvestigation or dishonesty or an excuse to hold. Well, we need time to cover up the thing, so we're under an investigation, and that gives us time to get our lawyers out there and get our stories straight and sanitize the information that looks bad on us and all that sort of stuff. So people need to be really aware of the nature of investigations, whether it's at Vermont Yankee or it's town investigations and state, U.S. government type of thing. You ought to really be carefully thinking about, what are they using the investigation for? But nonetheless, we're talking about Pilgrim's issues. So that investigation, right? It's been going on since February, January. Maybe we'll get over here. December 26th, right? That's when they had that. Remember I told you they started up in April, May. Within a week or two, they had a leak and stuff, and that's when probably the investigation started, right? It's a never ceasing investigative environment we're in here, where nobody tells the truth until until the event is over with for a long time. So, anyways. Down the bottom of this LER it talks about, we're going to talk about just the broader issues. And so I'm going to, wait a minute here. Okay, previous incident events. And this is not a conclusive list of events, believe me. These are what they've decided to show and stuff. And like I said, these OEs, like the first one, OE 337866. That's a top secret it's a system that the utilities have set up off the NRC's document system. The majority of information is designed to be moved off the NRC's internet site and gone into a private system and stuff. And most of the times, the agency will say, they'll reference a corrective action or other kind of an event, and they say that, the corrective action was satisfactory, but you don't really get to see what's in that corrective action or root cause and stuff like that. So this is the thing where for the last 2 decades or more, the teabagger Republicans have terrified everybody else in Congress, and they have total control over what the NRC does and stuff. Even if they're not a majority, they have the ability to gum up the works in other areas to protect their nuclear plants. And so this is what you get and stuff. And so look at so OE 33766 3-stage. Remember I talked about industry experienced numerous instances where SRV leakages have occurred at other plants with other target rock model 3-stage release valves. Remember the first LER? That's all they said. We had leaks in we've had numerous leaks in 2-stage models, but the 3-stage things don't have and never had a leak. They're virgins and stuff. But anyway, remember, and then the secret 2 leaks that they never talked about, right? 1 week after startup with brand new valves and stuff like that. So anyways. 3-stage safety relief valve pilot leakage just below normal operating pressure. Plant hatch. The plant hatch, I believe that's the Southern Company, right? The plant hatch installed the same model 3-stage SRVs in Unit 2 in 2011. In that 2011 frame, the 2011 time frame, remember I talked about Peach Bottom and their threaded seals, and they installed nitrile elastomers, threaded seals material. You know, the whole idea that, you know, the Buna-In, some idiot like me looked up Buna-In, what the hell Buna-In means, and discovered Vermont Yankees SRV problems, discovered Peach Bottom's problems, and stuff. And so the April 2011 timeframe is when Peach Bottom installed their bum threaded seal material. Hatch experienced numerous leaks during 2011. It's exactly like Pilgrim, right? That's exactly like Pilgrim. On some occasion, leakages were reduced by power and under pressure reductions. You know, on some occasions, okay, partially they reduced power and leakage, but did they have any shutdowns? I'm going to have to look at that. Was it a cause of any shutdowns? Hatch 2 had some success through power and pressure reductions, operating for several months after receiving the first valve through power and pressure reduction. What's that mean? Does that mean after several months, they had to do a shutdown because it all of a sudden started leaking a lot? And so, these are all selective information. The happy face, this is the touristy side of a town. This isn't the really the nitty-gritty, truthfully type of stuff. And so then you go on to another one, OE. So there's the hatch. I believe that's Hatch. I wonder who owns that. TVA or maybe Alabama Power. I don't know. But anyways, the next one is OE26394. This is a private, a super secret, off the books reporting system that all the utilities own. Right? As I said before, it's unregulated. There's no sense that if they don't spill the beans on these things, somebody's going to get into a lot of trouble. This is a gentleman's agreement that everybody reports things, but there's no consequences if you don't report things. And the way the industry works now, the only way they tell the truth is if they if they don't tell the truth, they're going to lose their career. That's the only way people tell the truth. If it's documented, you make them documented on pain of career ending and family damaging. That type of stuff. So planned shutdown to the three-stage release at Peach Bottom. It doesn't say. One it says in 2011. The Peach Bottom guy doesn't tell you a date and stuff. And so you just look at this. There's no standards of reportability. If you say if you declare the date on it, 2011 on one, all of them should be declared. All of them should have the dates of and the leakages and the shutdowns and what they did. It should be a comprehensive list of what went on with these relief valves. So the guys that Pilgrim's dealing with it, they'll have everything at their fingertips. And stuff. They probably do. They're in a system. It's like a part of the internet and stuff, and they probably got a, they can log into it and stuff. So, Peach Bottom, Unit 3. It doesn't say, the nature of the leakage, right? It doesn't say that they began right as soon as they installed it, like Hatch and Pilgrim and stuff like that. And then we got the next one, the OE blah blah blah, safety relief valve temperature phenomena, Fitzpatrick, and that's all they say. Well, what happened at Fitzpatrick? Is it because they don't want to talk about when did it start and how hard of a problem did they have dealing with it? Did it begin a week after the installation of the new release? Was it 8 leaks and 2 shutdowns like Pilgrim plant? Is the reason why they're not disclosing anything with Fitzpatrick is because it's a energy plant and they don't want to look bad on energy. And here's another one, 2-stage steam SRV board to seat misalignment, limerick. No, absolutely no verbiage, no paragraph on what went wrong, and plant shutdown due to increasing tailpipe temperatures. Dwayne Arnold and stuff. And so just think about that. I'll bet you. I'll bet you the safety relief valves are one of the most expensive components. I mean, relatively, I'll bet you they're expensive to me and you. There's 2 or 3 cars probably, new cars. You could buy with them. I don't know, but I wonder how much it is, per relief valve, plus the service contracts that get with it and all that sort of stuff. But I'll bet you it's a relatively small amount of money. As far as a component, like it's not replacing it's not like replacing a moisture separator, or it's not like replacing a steam generator, or it's not like replacing a main cooling pump, or a recirc pump, or a pumper motor, or that type of thing. Those are big bucks, they're millions of dollars. These are relatively smaller. They're smaller units, and it has to be smaller costs, right, and stuff like that. But I'll bet you these are one of the most expensive parts as far as causing power reductions and forced shutdowns and stuff like that. As far in the industry, certainly at Pilgrim and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying, like this last outage, this last thing with Pilgrim, this last operating period, 18 months, 2 shutdowns, lengthening out a 3rd shutdown, heading for a 3rd shutdown, but a blizzard of the century saved them and tripped off the plant and stuff. And so you look at all this sort of stuff and say, then you look at the Hatch and the Fitzpatrick and the Plant Hatch, the Peach Bottom, Peach Bottom, and all that sort of stuff. And I did looking at Peach Bottom, by the way, and as far as the set point lift accuracy and stuff, and looking at the LERs and see, normally it's one component, one LER, right? Or if it's identical two-part component, one LER. And when you're hiding something, and you hide the set point issue behind the same kind of LER, the same. You have one LER with set point inaccuracy problems, and you have the same LER talking about the leakages they had and all that sort of stuff. And so again, as a whole, it's really hard to do a thorough search on safety relief valve leakages and stuff like that, because the relevant paragraphs don't come up in a search, and also the headings are grossly inaccurate and stuff like that. And so in order to do a search on safety relief valve shutdowns and stuff like that, you get a few, half of them that are up there on the search, but there's about a zillion other entries in there that are unrelated, and then there's probably 10% that don't even come up on the search and stuff. And so you do a internet search on the NRC sites, it's better than nothing, but it's almost as bad as eating garbage. So what was I saying? What was I talking about there? No, Limerick, yeah, the Limerick and the LERs and all that sort of stuff. And so, it's, as I said, for the component base, on a component basis, as far as it degrading or causing a shutdown, I'll bet you the SRV valves are one of the most costly things that the utilities, especially the guys at Tiger Rock and stuff like that, have cost these utilities. You know, as I said, a minimally inexpensive component like an SRV valve, you know, it's a lot of money for me and your eyes, but relatively it's inexpensive. But there's a lot of $1 million a day shutdowns that occur over this. Occurs over at SRV valves and stuff. Why that happens, why the CEOs tolerate that, you know, we're just throwing money down the money and opportunity down the sewer. As far as to put it on target lock and valves, it's disgraceful. The CEOs aren't doing their diligence as far as you know um, uh, um, as far as minimizing SRAM and shutdowns and minimizing costs and maximum, you know, if they're really in the game of making profit, this stuff is poison to profit as far as shutdowns and stuff, $1 million a day shutdowns and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know, you know, from Pilgrim, uh, two shutdowns, 3 days each. That's $6 million plus a bunch of 80 and 90%. Probably another $1 million. That's $7 million. Probably a week shutdown, maybe week 9 day shutdown or something like that. Probably we'll give it well, we have to 7. I'll give it 4. That shutdown cost them $4 million or more and stuff. So we're up to $11 million. $11 million on safety relief valves have cost you know uh, uh, Pilgrim plant over a 2-year period and stuff, and we don't know how much the all the studies and all that sort of stuff cost them and stuff. So you know, if you're a CEO and you're worried about profits and you're worried about your stockholders, you'd say to yourself, "Well, man," and then you look at like Fitzpatrick had the same issue, right, and stuff like that. We don't know the nature of how much this really costs in these bum target lock relief valves have cost the industry. And like I said, I'll bet you these are one of the most expensive shutdown issues in the industry. These small, relatively inexpensive components, and really don't have a lot of them in a plant. You only have 4, right? But they create an enormous amount of shutdown days, non-operating days, and expenses and stuff like that. For a small component. And I don't see why the CEOs aren't sitting in there, raising hell with target locks and saying, you know, forcing them, or going off target lock and finding somebody else. I don't know why. It just baffles the mind as far as why the Entergy tolerates this kind of relationship that costs them so much money. Is somebody getting a kickback? Is somebody getting a kickback to? Is this a way of? I'll bet you that happy days are here again when one of the target rock valves fail, because then they're going to, then Entergy has to pay them to do a bunch of analysis and safety evaluations and all that sort of stuff. And they get they'll get to charge Entergy that kind of stuff, and so a lot of extra money. So if you have a properly operating valve, you make a little bit of money. If you have a valve that misfunctions, misfires all the time, and then Entergy has to spend a lot more money paying target lock. I don't know what the nature of it is, but it's terrible and stuff. And so, is there somebody so is Target Rock doing this with intention? Is somebody in Entergy getting a kickback for tolerating bad safety relief valve type of thing? Is there something going on? Because something's draining a lot of money off of corporate energy. Something's with this is draining really a lot of money away from the stockholders of energy. And then you sit in the environment you are with low with uh, uh, natural gas fraction frac 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 I can't even say it uh, fracking whatever. Um, and the low loads and the low prices on the grid and stuff like that. You know, they were wasting like $11 million or more on safety on bums new safety relief valves, brand new safety relief valves, and you know, Peach Bottom had all this trouble in 2001. What the hell? What the hell they put in the same model safety relief valve in Pilgrim when they had when Peach Bottom had so many. Um, Problems and stuff like that. What you know, CEO due diligence. You'd think they'd sit there and say, "Holy shit, this is going to cost me a lot of money if I put the same valves back in that Peach Bottom had," right? And who's to say that it's going to get better? It's going to get worse and stuff like that. So, you know, it is you know, as far as due diligence on a fleet-wide basis, as far as you know, sabotaging the finances of your fleet. In one way or another, in a critical time where you're battling for pennies because of low electric prices and stuff like that, it's bad. It's bad, you know. It is bad that a CEO would ever tolerate that kind of crap going on there, and the divergence of so much money away from profits and stuff. So, I worked on Limerick back in. I didn't work at Limerick. Pardon me. I worked on LaSalle issues in 2000, 2001, and what bugged me back then was that one plant they had like 4 SRVs leaking, and I think at the other one they had 3 leaking at one time and stuff. And so LaSalle came out of the 1990s, in the mid 1990s. They had a lot of operational problems, and the NRC got sick and tired of them, and that forced a 2-year shutdown of LaSalle units because they wanted them before Exelon. They recognized that they weren't putting a lot of sufficient amount of money into the nuclear fleet, and so this you know, we're getting into the comic book. This is a laughing over can't catch your breath so hard type of story. So they started diverting monies into their nuclear fleet to bolster it, especially at LaSalle plant, because they shut these guys down for 2 years. And by 2001, they were just started up from that 2-year shutdown, and I think to get their shit together. But so they diverted a lot of monies into their nuclear fleet, and the way they did that is starved their transmission system. And so by the time they got their nuclear fleet fixed, or barely fixed, or barely operational, they weren't upgrading their transmission system, and they had a lot of blackouts and all that sort of stuff. And the root cause of the blackouts was that they were diverting money from their transmission system into their nuclear fleet, and starving their transmission system and stuff. And so, yeah, kind of crazy stuff here. Actually, it's humorous. It keeps everybody bending over laughing that they do this stuff. They repetitively shoot themselves in the foot, type of thing. So, like I said, at one point in 2000, one of the LaSalle plants had all of their reliefs leaking, and had 2 or 3 in the other plant leaking. In Region 3, there was a lot of issues with leaking port valves and leaking safety relief valves. So, you know, I mean, it was astonishing the level of leaks that were going on, safety relief valve leaks. And I used to kid with them. I said, you know, you guys, how are you wasting so much money? 10% of your power from your reactor is going out your relief valves and going into your pores. How can you make money that way? But the serious side of it is heat was going up the leaking relief valves going into the torus, and it was raising the temperature of the torus. And in order to combat, at such a at such a temperature, there's emergency procedures. You start torus cooling. If it gets bad enough, you shut the plant down eventually, and stuff. And so they were forced to use torus cooling and stuff. And during that time, these two-faced guys, and it's insanity with these guys. They kind of siloing their issues, and it sounds like insanity. So on one side they were begging the NRC for a reduction in testing requirements of safety equipment, pumps, motors, and valves. Instead of once every month, they would do it at once every 6 months type of testing. And they were saying their pumps and motors and valves were the testing was causing too much wear and tear on the equipment, and that led to failures and stuff like that. And if you would test it less, you'd have less failures, and it'd be more reliable. The Happy Land story, the Yellow Brick Road type of thing. On the other side, they were having these leaking reliefs, and depending upon safety equipment, the torus cooling pumps and surface water pumps and all the valves associated with it, the breakers, a slew of equipment, safety equipment, was in service not for safety reasons, but in order to compensate for poor maintenance and the poor choice of the materials for safety relief valves on a huge scale. This wasn't a little scale. This was a huge scale and stuff. And so they were intentionally using safety equipment to support plant profit motivations, plant economic considerations, and not using safety equipment for safety considerations. Right? You see what I'm saying? They were using it they were consuming safety equipment just for the sake of staying up in power and not supporting safety events and stuff like that. And so, in one hand, they were bitching and complaining and wanting to test these equipment less. On the other one, they had increased temperatures in the torus, and they were using pumps, motors, valves, breakers, and all that sort of stuff to support torus cooling, which shouldn't have been happening. Shouldn't have never been there. There should be zero leaks on safety relief valves. That's the normal thing with safety relief valves. Zero leakage, and certainly that's not that difficult to do and stuff like that. So that was it was happening at a lot of other plants in Region 3. It was happening. It was mind-boggling that the numbers that was going on with that. And along that time, there was an issue with Limerick at one of their safety relief valves, and it was leaking for a long time, and it finally popped open. And it happened to pop open. It popped open on its own, and the plant had to do emergency shutdown. But the problem was, it was in the summer, and they were under emergency. There was, the grid was under extreme stress, and it made the grid, rocketed the price of electricity, and it, more threatened the grid because Limerick wasn't available and stuff, and so that's kind of one of the issues. There's a lot of we're not just serving nuclear safety. We're serving the community's interests and stuff like that. And if you operate with a leaking relief valve through the summer or the winter at a critical time, then you're transferring money and risks to the community. In order to support your company, you're reducing maintenance and taking chances, and that goes in the backs of the people and stuff like that. This is not just gambling with no loss of money or potential gain and profits. This is insanity and stuff. And there was another issue. I believe it was that a LaSalle plant and its torus stratification issues. And when I was becoming a licensed operator, we talked a lot about that. And what happened is they get temperature readings, electronic temperature readings in the torus that tells us the water temperature, right? And that goes up in that you have a gauge and you got a recorder up in the control room that tells you what your temperature is in your torus. And so so at LaSalle there were so they had leaking relief valves, right? Putting a lot of energy, a lot of temperature, heat into the torus, and they were required to start up the torus cooling many times and stuff like that. Except this time, every time they started it up, LaSalle would see a spike in average temperatures. It would be, the temperature would slowly rise up into just before they had to do they were going to enter an action statement required to use torus cooling. Then they would start torus cooling. It would mix the water, and the average temperature would shoot up quite a bit higher and stuff, real higher. And nobody was questioning why that was happening and stuff like that. The right way you're supposed to look at that is when you start torus cooling, you're already supposed to have an average. You're supposed to have an average temperature of the torus. And so when you start torus cooling up, you're not supposed to see the average temperature rise or decrease. So finally, the NRC, somebody got a bug in their ass in the NRC, and they started questioning about that temperature rise after they started using torus cooling. And what they found out was that the temperature detectors were more or less near the bottom of the tank, and the temperature from the leaking safety release, that's hot water, and the hot water and the cool water were stratifying, right? And the hot water would go up to the top, and it would slowly, be more hot water, and the quantity of hot water at the top would increase, and then finally go down to where the temperature detector was at the bottom of the tank, and then they would start mixing it, right? And so then that would mix it, and that was the reason why the temperature was screaming up. They didn't have an accurate indication of what the bulk temperature was. They only taken a temperature of the bottom stratification level of the water was, and it was, and so it wasn't a mistake. It was operators knowing that that's not supposed to operate like that. And, they're not supposed to have such a spike in average water temperature after you start it up. And they didn't have that questioning type of attitude, and they probably were worried about, well, that will reflect bad on us. So why should we? Nobody will ever catch us what's going on, and we really don't want to even know why it's going on. We really don't even think about this water is stratifying and stuff. And plus, if we disclose it, we're going to have to spend a lot of money on investigations and changing the thermometers around, and we're going to have to do a lot more work. They're going to bitch and moan about us having leaking safety relief valves. So let's just let a lying dog lay, type of thing. So it's not. I'm saying it's not a human error mistake. It was a sense of corruption mistake. They knew what was going on. They never opened their mouth, and the NRC caught them with their pants down. And so on the operator's mind, the torus is what keeps what cools the containment. temperature differential between um, 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 between what the bulk temperature is and what the highest design temperature is. That temperature differential gives you the protection of if you had a core melt or something like that, it would keep the pressures low enough that you wouldn't burst the containment and stuff. And so this stratification issue, especially when the majority of the water was hotter than measured, was a sickening threat to the public at large. If there was ever an accident, you would think, by the temperature measurements, you would think that you had adequate margins of safety and stuff. And really, you had a lot less than you were. I can't put it in a scale of how close you were, but you had half to a quarter of the cooling capacity of the torus cooling. It was horrendous that LaSalle put the community at such risk. And there's a philosophy involved in this that is often not realized. See, the NRC and the utility, they talk about, we're all in limits and we're safe because of the limits and stuff like that. And I'm telling you, if you work to limits and rules, or you just use the rules, you just manipulate the rules as best you can to make an extra couple of pennies for the utility, you're going to end up in a serious accident. You're going to end up with your plant unreliable and shutting down a ton of times. You're going to damage the corporate reputation. You're going to damage the nuclear reputation. You're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble if you do that. And that's how the NRC explains a lot of things. We're all right because we're following the rules and stuff. An operator in a control room sees a different world than how the NRC expresses what's going on here by the following the rules and regulations to work type of thing, to make an advantage to the most advantage to a utility. A seasoned operator would sees a plant as an astonishing complex set of wires, pumps, valves, components, people, human people, tons of human people and stuff like that. He sees that as an extremely startling, mind-breakingly complex piece of equipment and stuff like that. And he's proud of, he's got control of all these pieces, and for the most part, they do a good job. And if you really seen the complexity these guys are dealing with, you would appreciate them more than you would. They've got to use a lot of higher intelligence and anticipation and putting fragments of information together, and that's how you protect the community. And and there's individual intelligence and there's group intelligence, and when the group intelligence is at its highest efficiency and stuff like that, I have absolutely no. I have confidence that they could operate a lot of energy underneath them, as far as an operating plant, and even the energy within the radioactivity in the core and stuff like that. As far as like using the highest, parts of science and engineering and group behavior and stuff like that, I have no qualms at all about running a nuclear power plant. But the philosophy is, with an operator, he sits there and he sees a lot of strange things over the course of 20 years or 30 years in there. He sees that we all have gaps, tremendous gaps at times, as far as knowledge and understanding what's going on underneath the stuff we can't see. And he over the course of his 20 years, he understands that you don't serve anybody by just ruling out or operating to the rules and stuff like that. I mean, what really an operator is he's that guy that continually strives with all his might to have the maximum amount of safety margin in that plant in all aspects of operations. He sits there. His job is to make sure that the safety margins are as wide as they can be. In order to make and a CEO objective is to make as much money with the narrowest margin, safety margin, right? Sliver. He's happy with just a sliver as long as he's making a lot more money and stuff like that. A professional nuclear operator is happy if he's in a host of different areas. He's like a magician, and his job is to maintain the most safety margin that is possible. He understands that equipment acts erratically. There's a barrier for him understanding what's going on under a lot of this equipment and stuff like that. And he's assured he's going to see surprises. He almost sees them on a weekly or monthly basis, and he either read it at other plants as far as these enormous gaps in knowledge and stuff like that. And terrible accidents and events that conspire against the plant, and they take pride in it. An event happens, he's a magician as far as moving his equipment around and his people around to counteract the effect of an accident and stuff like that. These guys really do when they're optimized, they perform magic. And it's easily, it's without breaking a sweat or getting nervous and stuff like that, as far as manipulating their machines around to counteract an accident and stuff like that. And like I said, I have no qualms at all, as far as if the human team is optimized and strives for maximizing the safety margin of a plant, design safety margin of a plant and stuff like that. It gets bad when everybody gets in the mindset, all we got to do is follow the rules. If we run right up to the rules, my boss will be happy, and I'll happily have a job and stuff like that. That's asking for trouble and that type of thing. So again, that idea of gaps in our understanding of the system, it's not like it's large, but they occur, 2 or 3 times a year. The bigger ones, every 5 or 10 years and stuff. And an operator is not confident that the rules and regulations and the procedures are going to save them. And stuff like that, because you could operate that if you had perfect knowledge, if there was no gap of understanding how your equipment is working and maintaining, and how your people are going to behave and stuff like that. If you had a God's eye view, then you could run right up to the edge of the safety margin and stuff like that. But a seasoned operator knows that the viability of the industry depends upon having all the employees maximizing that safety margin and fighting to maximize it and that type of thing. There's another issue that most of the until recently, most of the nuclear power plants, BWRs, had 2-stage target rock release. The 2-stage target rock release valves, and they've had, I suspect that LaSalle's back in the early 2000s was 2-stage, but I don't know. But they've had accuracy problems over the years. The lift point relief valve, if the pressure gets up to so much, and it opens up to stop the pressure rise and decrease the pressure, say in a BWR, if the relief valves don't work, then you burst the pipe or something else, and you create a loca, and your bosses are pissed off at you. Bosses end up getting pissed off at you, and antis are out of the gate. So, I mean, and over the years, in the beginning, it was the set point accuracy limit, federal limit, was plus or minus 1% and stuff. And because it is accuracy, they couldn't keep their safety relief valves in. You know, every time it went over plus or minus 1%, when they tested the valve, went over 1 point plus or minus 1%. They were required. Of course, they could only test them when the plant was shut down. But if they had known that valve was outside the plus or minus 1%, they would have had to shut down. And the federal regulations thinks that's so important is because they make them do the reports. If you know, if you get a bad test, if those valves go out of their band, their plus or minus 1% band, then you got to report it to the federal government and stuff like that, because that's so important. We want you to be aware. We want to be aware of how accurate you're keeping your relief valve set points at, and stuff. And so, and then they were having a lot of these, you know, events, reporting inaccuracies and all that sort of stuff. And so the industry said, you know, well, the solution to that is not to fix the problem, right? The solution to it is to widen the band of accuracy. So they went from 1% to 3%, and plus or minus 3%. And, you know, so you think to yourself, well, that's probably going to reduce the reports. They're not going to have to report so much on inaccuracy problems. But, you know, what I can see out of it is done the opposite. They say, well, you know, we got plus or minus 3%, and we're not going to fiddle with the valves as much as we did in the past, because we've got such a wide margin, and so, you know, that's led to actually more failures than it has in the past. So you got a much wider band, but you got a lot more problems because you're not taking as much care as they had in the past. So, you know, I think they were safer at plus or minus 1%. I think it was in the capability of them to design and operate a valve in plus or minus 1% and stuff. And then it goes to that conservative safety philosophy. You know, conservative safety philosophy, like in LaSalle stratification. You know, we got gaps in our knowledge. We got gaps that we kind of know they're there, and we make believe they're not, and we got a whole bunch of gaps that we just have no idea what's going on in the containment, let's say, of a plant and stuff like that. And so that's, you know, a philosophy that we're going to have to widen our margin of safety to compensate for these gaps. That's a fair shot for me. And same thing with these, you know, these, is that what you do? Is a habit? You know, you run into problems with safety release valves, and you know, instead of fixing them, you go run to the regulator, and they automatically give you a widening of the band type of thing. And then there's evidence that, you know, that really didn't solve the problem that, you know, was intended to do. It really didn't minimize an inaccuracy detection of valves. It more or less worsened it. So, you know, the justification of why you widen that band is just blown up and stuff like that. So you get to these philosophical issues of what safety is and stuff. And if you get into this mechanical stuff that the agency, you know, it didn't. It always was safe. You know, it's always in regulation. I mean, I'll even talk about a new one. You know, the recent safety injection refueling water tank business there. You know, somehow the water got up on a roof, and it went to the roof drain, and it went out into the Lake Michigan and stuff like that. I agree with him that that the amount of radioactivity is minuscule, inconsequential to human health. But the part that that impacts human health is the quality of the staff of maintaining the radioactive barrier. It is not really a complicated endeavor and stuff. And you know, you design a tank that's fully qualified for the type of duty it's doing, and all that sort of stuff, and you're aware of what's going on inside that tank, and you got a team of Cracker Jack employees watching it and criticizing its dysfunction and stuff like that. I mean, those are the things. Those are the things. Those are the things that keep you safe. It's not the safety of the water that goes out into Lake Michigan that's important. It's how the group works, and that's a symptom. If they can't prevent the radiation, if they can't control the radiation leaving their plant, if they have a series of releases of minor amounts of radioactivity, that's a warning to you that there's something wrong with the staff, that they're not competent to manage a nuclear power plant. That's a precursor, an indication of future behavior with a plant. It's inconsequential to human health, the radioactivity that went into the water, but it's a enormous indicator of future, of current and future performance of a plant. So you're seeing the little bits and pieces of radiation escaping, and they can't catch it before it gets released, and stuff like that. That's saying that the employees are poisoned, and they for some reason or other can't keep it. Really, the barrier controlling the release of radioactivity. Right? Every time you release a radioactivity into the environment, to be a competent reactor operator that can preserve the core geometry, every release of radioactivity is supposed to be planned and predicted and measured, right? And those are simple things. They're really not. There's no rocket science there. There's no rocket science with the NRC tolerating the leak of that tank over and over again, and then you say, oh, geez, we got to release a radioactivity. You know, these are all symptoms of a terribly dysfunctional organization, and it's heading for trouble, a lot more trouble, because you know the NRC doesn't seem to be able to contain that kind of trouble, to change behaviors and stuff. Like every time they rate a worthless report, you know, that sends a message to them, oh, we can just continue to do it because the NRC is going to be busy writing reports, and reports are inconsequential to us, according to our bosses and stuff. And you know, the big events, the body parts all over the place. I'm telling you, the big events, the billion-dollar accidents, and the Fukushimas, and the PMI, and all them things. The investigators of those kinds of accidents really, you know, takes a lot of. They have to stomach a lot, body parts all over the place, and they're astonished with the outcome of these investigations. They're shocked. They're astonished. Every one of the outcomes of these investigations. They're not astonished with how people behave, how organizations get diseased, and they get corrupted, and they get disillusioned, and they get reckless and selfish, and out for pennies and stuff like that, and those kinds of behaviors happen over and over and over again for many years, till decades, and stuff like that. They're not none of that stuff. They're not shocked at picking up body parts. They're not shocked at the cost of billions of dollars worth of damage, and many billions of dollars worth of consequences to the local regions, and into a nation at large, into our credibility, into the billions of dollars it cost us when the world sees us as a less competent nation, and stuff like that. What the investigators are shocked at is How in the hell did that system operate for so long in that condition? Now, that plant was spinning out of control, or or we were making space shots on the shuttle and stuff, and so many people knew about it and stuff like that. How did it go on for that many years? That shocks everybody. How does such a disgusting, rotten system continue to operate without harming anybody? And that's the shock that everybody has. How long this stuff goes on, and the system doesn't tear itself apart. I'm Mike Mulligan here, and thank you for listening to